So we finally got to sit down and watch The Beast Within. This supposedly came out to theaters like a few weeks ago, and we were looking for it pretty much every day because, you know, we like to see the horror movies that get released in theaters so that we can get you guys a review up ASAP. But there was no showings in all of Arizona that I could find. So we had to wait for this VOD release. Mm-hmm. And so we sat down, we watched it, let's talk about it. So it is about this family that lives in a rural area, time period unknown, but something more modern. Whether it's the 80s or now, doesn't really matter. But they, Kid Harington's character is a werewolf, and the mom locks him up at night.
Yeah.
And there's like family strife because of this. It's all an allegory for like either alcoholism or like abusive parents or something. I don't know. You know, this is a very well shot, very well acted movie that I was mostly bored with because I don't know. I never connected to the family in a way that made me care enough about what was going on, even though I felt like this was a movie that had all the right pieces to be great. I thought everyone in it was really damn good. I thought it looked really damn good. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought the story was definitely had, you know, tons of like
potential and symbolism and everything. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like a competently made film, but I was really bored during it as well. I think that werewolf movies are very hit or miss for me. Like I love the concept of werewolves. I've always been fascinated by them, but I think that there's definitely some werewolf tropes that, you know, they can be done well and, you know, have a successful film based on the tropes. But with this one, I just felt that like the analogy of werewolf for like alcoholism or abusive person or whatever, you know, insert drug addiction, whatever you want to insert into that. I just found that it didn't work for me very well. But I think that like because it's well acted, because it's well shot, I think that there will be an audience for this film that will really enjoy it and appreciate it. But I just think it was a little bit maybe too safe. Maybe that's the other thing too. The other part with werewolf movies that I think is such a key part of them is the werewolf itself. If you're gonna go the route, like, because there's a movie that we watch, I always forget it, that we don't really see any werewolf in it, but it has like the werewolf tropes and symbolism, and it's kind of I forget it. It's an indie movie that we watched like a year ago, but anyway, it can work when you don't showcase the werewolf. But I think that this film does show the werewolf at times, and I was not happy with like how it looked. I wasn't really a fan of any of the transformation stuff that was going on, and those are two things that I think are really important. And if you want to go the route of like kind of keeping it ambiguous of like the werewolf analogy, like they're maybe not a werewolf, but they have the animalistic urge, you know what I mean? Like then you can do that by not necessarily showing those transformation scenes and like the final, like, you know, the final result of the transformation. But this one definitely does want to showcase the werewolf to an extent, and I wasn't really a fan of that part of this movie.
I think the movie you're thinking of is something with like animals in the trailer, or a trailer title.
My Animal? I don't know if that's it. It's a lesbian queer romance, I think, that if I'm remembering it correctly. But that one, I remember we quite liked it a lot. But it's a very kind of ambiguous werewolf film, and it works in that movie. And I'm sure there's other examples that I could think of, but I just can't right now. But for like a traditional werewolf movie, Yeah, I think that that's a really important part is the animal and like the monster. You know, it's a monster movie.
The problem here, of course, is that this movie is going to bring in a bunch of people who are looking for a werewolf movie. Mm-hmm. And that's not what this is at all. Mm-hmm. Right? And so you're going to be disappointed wanting a werewolf movie. And I actually have been watching some werewolf movies as of late just because I was, psyching myself up for this movie, just getting in the headspace of like werewolf films. And, much like the Babadook being sold as a monster movie, this is kind of like that. This feels like the Babadook to me in that way. This is nowhere near the level of quality the Babadook is, but it's that kind of concept where we're focusing on the family. And the monster within. I mean, the literal title of the film is The Beast Within.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives it away a little bit there. But is the werewolf thing even relevant or necessary in this film? Not really. It only acts as a, visual metaphor. Right? That's really the only purpose it serves in the film. If you were to take that stuff out, you would have a pretty classic, abusive father, mom that's not doing enough to protect her kid, and we're seeing the movie through the lens of the daughter, through the innocence of youth.
Yeah.
And, and then there's some things said in the end about, generations and whatnot that is part of that allegory. But as I said, I think that the actors are all damn good. I think it's a very good looking movie. You have Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, the father in this, who's the grandfather of the little kid. He's also from Game of Thrones. The mom in this I've seen in a couple things. I know her from Hounds of Love and a television series by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, Nosferatu. She's the lead of that show. And then the daughter of this, who was wonderful and is a great little actress, and I'd love to see her in more things. Unfortunately, she's in this film, which isn't all that great, but she is great in it.
Yeah, she is.
She was also the little girl in Stop Motion from earlier this year, which is a much better film. And if you're going to watch one of the two, that's the one to watch from her. But for me, it really just came down to the connection to the family.
Yeah, I think
is the
right.
problem.
I think you're totally right on that because,
they do an okay job of building it, but there's some disconnect. I'm not sure what it is exactly, and it could be the fact that we're looking for the werewolf stuff,
maybe,
and not focusing on the family, because we build up this relationship between the daughter and her mother, and then the father kind of comes in and out, and it almost feels like a Shining scenario at times. And the grandfather's there, but there's just not enough characterization and moments between the family that really engage us and connect us to them, that makes us care about their story. Even though I felt like they were very good, and I did feel a genuine connection to between them. It felt like a family, but I just didn't connect for some reason, and I'm honestly not sure why, because I feel like all the pieces are there for this to work, but it just didn't, and I felt so disengaged.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know how to exactly explain it.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to explain because most of the time when you have a family in a movie, especially if you do feel a genuine spark between them, it's pretty easy to start connecting to them, especially if most people are a part of a family, right? You can kind of draw on your own experience, but I think they're right about that. There's something missing from the family unit that disconnects you. And then for me, I also stand by what I was saying about the werewolf aspect not being enough for me. And, what you were saying before, you kind of could have substituted any monster for the werewolf. The only thing that the werewolf offers is the transformation from man to beast. Yeah. But I think you could also accomplish that with like a vampire. Sure. I mean, the difference being maybe that, you know, werewolves have times where they're not in monster form, but yeah, I don't know.
For me, it just comes down to, like, the more I think about it, it's just like the way the family's presented to us. Mm-hmm. Like, even though we get little moments of the daughter and the mother together, and they go out and they're supposed to be having this time where she's like giving her the option to drive the car, and they're driving and they're going into town and they're like hiding it from dad, and there's just not enough moments. There's not enough character moments that make me connect. That's all it really comes down to. Like, the dad is never likable.
That's
right?
I was just gonna say. I think that's a big.
So it would be very tragic.
Yes.
If he was likable when he wasn't, like, during the lunar cycle. Like, it's, like, when he gets closer to the night, his mood starts to shift.
Yeah.
And you start to care about that breaking of the family, because there's not a lot of, like, good reasoning for why mom sticks it out.
Yeah.
And then grandpa's like doesn't want him around, but she's like fighting to stay, and you're like, why?
Yeah, I think after, like, talking about it, I think you're right. I think that the problem is the father figure. Because of that, like, transformation needing to take place, it feels like you do need to connect and like him when he's not a monster. And I think that monstrous quality bleeds over into, like, a lot of aspects of their life. And I think, I mean, of course there are people who have abusive parents who are abusive 24/7. It's not like every person that's abusive always has a light side to the abuse.
Yeah.
But for this metaphor, I think it probably would have worked better if we really believed how much he cared about the family and his daughter, and, like, didn't want to hurt them, but he has, like, you know, the Jekyll and Hyde kind of effect where he kind of can't help himself whenever he's, you know, close to the full moon or whatever. I think that maybe would have been a better setup.
I mean, the more I think about it, the more the movie makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't... There's nothing particularly wrong with the film exactly, because, like, I can explain pretty much everything when it comes to, like, why she stays and all of that stuff, because she's like the allegory is pertaining to, with, like, abusive relationships. She's either A, very, you know,
Stockholm syndrome?
No, like, codependent.
Oh, yes. Submissive and codependent. Uh-huh.
And also, like, you know, she's just fucking afraid that he's going to come after them if she doesn't lock him up. But as I was saying in the movie, like, she has the perfect out here, because he lets her chain him up at night. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you want to leave, you just chain him up and then go get the kid and leave. But so that's, I guess, my issue, right? Is that we don't see them ever good. Yeah. So, like, I'm never buying into why she's sticking around.
Right, like how she still loves him.
If you love your kid so much, and your relationship with your husband seems to be such a strain on your life in every imaginable way, and you're, like, sneaking off behind his back to do things and all these, it's like, why not just leave?
Yeah.
When you have the perfect out of that he's a literal monster, and that you can chain him up and just ditch out on him. So, like, I don't know, they just don't give us enough cause for them to stay. But then again, once, you know, a lot of people stay
in reality too,
with no discernible cause or reason. Like, you're like, I had a friend who was married to a guy for almost 20 years who was a total prick. And every time I talked to her about it, she would just be like, I love him. And I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
He's abusive. He's awful.
Yeah.
He cheats on you. He does. And it's just like, I'm just staying. Mm-hmm. Like, they just get, I don't know, used to it. It's like their life. They're used to it.
It's a sad reality.
So I think the movie works.
I do.
But I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that ultimately like I said, people will like the movie. There will be people that really vibe with it, but I think that we just did not vibe with it. So, like,
most didn't.
We don't have...
Has a 4.2 on it.
Yeah, but I do think there will be some people who are into it. You know, like, for sure. But, yeah, it's hard to pinpoint. We've kind of talked about a few things that maybe might be causing why we don't like it, but I think at the end of the day, it's just we don't connect to it, and we don't vibe with it, and that's just it. Like, there's definitely movies out there that, like, are competent and good and have, like, a clear plot that you just watch and you're like, I don't like this. Like, I just don't. So, yeah, this one didn't work for us.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if those are all spoilers or not.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that, too. I think maybe we should say mild spoilers.
It's
all right.
Yeah. Well, if you watch it, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
And we'll see you in the comments.
Bye.